When Stellar Blade was released in 2024, the game was met with praise from critics and gamers. Details of the game itself, related characters on premise were enjoyable and even memorable. Minor details from the time when the game was originally released held discussions of censorship, as well as the prevalence of the said censorship in modern gaming. But the speculative scenario is this: the interpretation of censorship with Stellar Blade had no reasoning. Ever since the creation of video games, on the theory of gaming as a method of entertainment or theory of expression, there have always been those who interpreted actions by developers with relation to changes to content by the said developers as taking away from the experience with the theoretical game. For decades, such decisions were done by developers without the knowledge of the general population that partook of the video gaming medium. At the time of Stellar Blade's release, information on video games were literally be able to be announced, retrieved, and shared almost instantaneously. For that particular reason, or even point of view with modern video games, on the assumption of censorship either rightfully or wrongfully, is what the entire debate was all about. Before the official release of Stellar Blade, depictions of Eve in various costumes added the sense of appeal or even fan service. The game also had visuals of explicit violence which seemed practical considering the premise of the game, on what the developers were trying to achieve with Stellar Blade on portrayals of it to the gaming community. There were displays of anticipation of all sorts as a result of promotional imagery, related footage, and claims from Sony. However, from information now known, most examples of the pre-release footage was removed, and upon release, visuals for depictions of Eve in costumes, displays of violence in-game, and even innuendo references were all changed, modified, or even removed. Online speculations or discussions had particulars of the censorship by Sony to be originally in some regions of the world due to varying governmental laws, while the assumptions were that most of the PlayStation market would have access to the original content and uncensored displays as developers intended. The original claims of censorship had to be with one of Eve's costumes, with particular details being changed. Opinions of people had rightful anger towards the act of censorship. Others had neutral points of view, even a lack of concern over something so minuscule when in comparison to the entire experience of the game. When confronted by the debates in comparison with the game's release, developers were neutral on the topic in an attempt to not aggravate those who believed in the claims of censorship or those who considered the whole situation to be greatly exaggerated. When the official statement was made public, instead of calming the gaming population, it added a different interpretation of the comment with claims that there were indeed censorships as originally speculated, but the censored aspects of content would be there for some and an uncensored version would have been available for other audiences. The consensus were that the developers of the game, Shift Up and Sony, intentionally portrayed the main character of Eve in a particular way to promote the game, and to incentivize the male demographic to become naturally interested with the game. Shift Up and Sony intentionally portrayed violence in the game to be graphic, to differentiate it from other games as well. When interest in the game was achieved through sexuality and violence, the very features of sexuality and violence were later removed once the said interest turned into revenue for Shift Up on Sony. The claims of censorship became such a problem for Sony's public image of the time that Sony allowed gamers who purchased the game as eligible for a refund through the reasoning of false advertisement. While the exact amount neither affected Stellar Blade sales or Sony's PlayStation Plus program to a serious extent, it showed just how serious some people's interpretations of the claims of censorship with Stellar Blade were. Out of irony, sources had the brunt of the focused anger upon Eve's holiday rabbit costume, while other costumes in the game that were technically more revealing or suggestive to be completely removed from the topic and were not the focus of attention. Despite all of the details and controversies surrounding Stellar Blade when it was originally released, it was still considered by most to be a brilliant gaming experience. but the reputation of Shift Up, Young Tae Kim, and all involved were permanently affected as a result of all that had occurred. Ultimately, the entire debate over censorship with Stellar Blade's release was something that was occurring before the game was released, and eventually resolved with, but not to the satisfaction of all involved, with the incident from the developers, to the producers, and to the gamers.